Okay, I think there we're going on YouTube. Okay, there we go. Lovely. Okay. All right. I think we are going to get started, ladies and gentlemen. So welcome one more time to this meeting, or to this session, sorry. Yep, we certainly are on YouTube. Yeah, this is a new experience for me. Yeah, if you don't want to have your picture there, then yeah, please remove yourself. Yes. Yeah. Okay, so oh my goodness, what's going on? Okay, I now need to figure out what's going on. Just a minute. What do I need to do? I think I maybe need to close that. Okay, right. Okay, yes. All right. I'm just gonna check with Mohammed that everything is okay. Sorry, just bear with me a second, guys. All right. Okay, right. We're definitely going to get started now. So, as you know, this session is about language awareness, and this is a topic that is something that I've always been quite interested in. And of course, you know, being a native speaker, when I first started teaching, I had absolutely zero language awareness. I mean, okay, yes, I can speak English, and I studied English language and English literature at school and at college, and at university. But I didn't understand exactly how the language worked. And so I had a lot to learn. And I think even now, of course, even after all these years of teaching, there are still things that I learn about language. And it's one of the things why I enjoy being a teacher, this excitement about learning about the language and all the different things that we do with it, and the subtle differences in meaning sometimes. Yeah, I still get really excited about that. So this is a topic that's very close to my heart, one that I've, been interested in for a long time. So I hope I've got some things that will help you to think about in terms of your own development and your own language awareness. So let me share my screen so that you can see the session that we're going to be doing. Let me play my slides. There we go. All right. Okay. So let me just very, very briefly introduce myself to those of you who don't know who I am. Yeah, my name is Amanda, and I started teaching in 1995, so quite a few years ago. And I've worked in a few different countries, mostly in Turkey. That's where my main experience was. I've been training now for over 15 years. And as you can see from the information on the screen there, I'm a CELTA tutor and assessor for CELTA. I'm a TILEC tutor, which is a young learner certificate. and I'm also a local Delta tutor. So one of the things that I'm very, very interested in is professional development. I always want to think about how I can develop myself as a teacher and as a trainer, but also, of course, how I can support other people to do the same. So we're going to start with some sentences. So here are 4 sentences. Can you have a look at these sentences and decide, are they correct or not? I will just give you a few seconds to look at them and have a think about them. Are they correct or not? Okay. So maybe you can actually just put some ideas in the chat box. You're saying no, 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 no. Okay. Are any of these sentences correct? We're still saying no, 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 no. Okay. All right. Number 4 possibly is okay. Yeah. Okay. So knowing whether these sentences are correct or not is because of our awareness of language. If we have an understanding about language, then we can decide whether these sentences are correct or not. So let's have a quick look at each of the sentences. So number 1, some of you are not sure about number 1, but it's not correct. This question is kind of like 2 questions in one. So we've got, can you tell me? And then we've got, what is this? So it's like 2 questions put together into one question. And we call this an embedded question because it's 2 questions inside one. So according to English grammar, when we make an embedded question, we have to use a different word order to what we've got here. So the correct version is, can you tell me what this is? We follow, for this part, we follow the normal word order. We don't have to invert like we do in a normal question. So in an embedded question, yeah, there's no need for us to invert anything. Okay. The next one is a sentence that I often heard my students say in Turkey. And of course it's wrong. But I often wondered, like, why? Why do they say this? Why do they say with bus? There must be a reason why they say it. Well, of course, the reason is because that's what they say in Turkish. It's a direct translation from Turkish. I don't know if you say the same in Arabic also. But of course, that's why they made that mistake. The third sentence is possibly correct or possibly not, depending on the context. So if we're on a ship and there's water coming onto the ship and the ship is, then we can say we are sinking because the boat is going down into the water. Or in a different context, maybe someone wants to tell us that they are thinking about something. So possibly they've got the wrong sound here at the beginning of the sentence. I know that this sound, the sound, is a difficult sound for quite a lot of different nationalities. And unfortunately, it's the most common consonant sound in English. So it crops up in many, many different words. So it's important that our students can say it correctly. And of course, that us as teachers can say it correctly so that we can model it for our students. Sometimes it doesn't matter if they get the pronunciation wrong, as long as the context is clear and people can understand from the context. But sometimes maybe the context even doesn't help. So this is a problem again, because maybe the sound doesn't exist in students' mother tongue. And then the last one, which some of you, or quite a few, thought was correct. Grammatically, it is correct, but there's a problem with it in terms of its function. So if I say to someone, "Give me the pen," it's not very polite, is it? So there's a register problem here. So the sentence itself, the words, the structure of the sentence is completely accurate, but the problem is the register of the sentence. If I say this to my boss, there's no way that he's going to give me the pen. Maybe if I say it to my friend, okay, maybe she will give me a pen. So sometimes language awareness is not just about structure and the way that the words are put together. It can also be about the register of the language. Are we using the right kind of language for the right kind of situation? Okay, so let's move on and think a little bit more about what language awareness is. So hopefully during this session, we're going to answer these questions. We're going to think about what is language awareness. We're going to think about why, as language teachers, do we need to develop our language awareness? And we're going to think about how we can develop our language awareness. So hopefully, by the end of this session, we'll have answered to some degree these three questions. Okay, so let's start with this first question. What is language awareness? There are many different things that kind of make up our language awareness. Let's look at what some of those things are. So having an awareness of language means that we have an explicit knowledge of language. So I'm very sorry for the police in the background. When I first started teaching, I didn't have this explicit knowledge of language. So I couldn't say, that's a verb, that's present perfect, that's a first conditional sentence. I didn't know any of that terminology, and I didn't understand how the language worked either. I knew it implicitly, of course, because I'm a native speaker, so I know how the language, or what's correct and what's not, but I didn't know how to explain it, and I certainly didn't have this explicit knowledge. Another aspect of language awareness is understanding how language works. So how do we put all the bits together? How do we make a grammatically correct sentence? How do we know which tense to use in which situation? So this is an important part of how language works. Connected to that then is, again, how language is structured. So knowing which bits to put where in the sentence. So in English, as we know, the structure of the sentence is subject, verb, object. But in other languages, it's subject, object, verb. So depending on the language that we're learning determines the structure that we put for the structure that we use for the sentences. Another thing that helps, that's an element of language awareness, is knowing what is right and wrong, but knowing why it's right or wrong. So again, when I first started teaching, I knew what was right and I knew what was wrong. I had no idea about why. That's English, right? It's just, that's how it is. Well, that's not a good enough answer for students. They want to know why we do it like this. And okay, sometimes it is just because it's English and there's no explanation. But often, yes, we can give the students some explanation. Why do we use this tense rather than this tense? This is something that we can explain if we have good language awareness. Also, yeah, language awareness is knowing how to use the language. So if we think back to the sentence that we had on the previous screen, sentence number 4, our knowledge of language helps us to know that, okay, in this situation, it's okay to say, give me the pen. But in a different situation, it's not going to be okay to say it like that. So having this knowledge of how to use language helps us, of course, to be able to use it effectively. Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to click on so quickly. Okay, so those are the main elements of what it means to have language awareness. Possibly you could think of more. But it's important for us to think about why, as language teachers, we need to have this language awareness. Students, of course, expect us to know about language. And I know when I first started teaching that it was something I felt very scared of because I didn't have this awareness. And of course, that meant that when I went into my lessons, I didn't feel confident because I didn't really know what I was doing. I knew some teaching techniques and I could, build a relationship with my students. But when it came to teaching grammar, I found it incredibly difficult because I just didn't have that awareness of language. So I know I spent at least the first year, couple of years possibly, of teaching, thinking I have no idea what I'm doing here in terms of teaching grammar. And I think that's part of the reason why I then became so interested in it, because I didn't like this feeling. I didn't like this insecure feeling that I had. I wanted to be confident. I wanted to be a good teacher. So my goodness, did I do my homework? I really studied and found out more about language. So having this awareness of language helps us as teachers to understand learners' problems. So if a student has a particular problem with, I don't know, they're getting mixed up between tenses maybe, or they're confusing one word with another, for example, then our language awareness helps us to understand what those problems are. Possibly the problems come from the student's own language. Maybe that's why they're making the mistake. Or it could just be that they haven't quite learned the structure yet, or something.
Hamad,
could you mute your microphones? Thank you. Okay. All right. Another reason why we need to have language awareness is so that when students do make mistakes in the classroom, that not only can we identify them, but we also know how to correct them. It's no good being able to identify an error if I don't know what to do with it, if I don't know how to go about correcting it. So yes, this is another important element about why we need to have this awareness. This is something that I found very difficult when I was an inexperienced teacher. It's only something that I got better at, I think, as I became more experienced, is knowing how to upgrade students' language. So what I mean by that is maybe the students are using the correct language for the situation, their grammar is accurate, they're using the right vocabulary, etc., etc. But it maybe just doesn't quite sound right. Or there's maybe a more natural alternative. So a good example of that is, for example, a student might say, oh, I collect my children from school every day. Perfectly good sentence. I can understand it. It's great. But native speakers probably wouldn't say that. They're more likely to say, I pick my children up from school every day, or I pick up my children. So we are more likely to use a phrasal verb than the regular verb. So things like that, knowing alternative ways to say things is another important reason why we need to have language awareness. Particularly for higher level students, we want them to, of course, have a variety of language, not just keep saying things in the same way. Another reason is so that we can understand and answer students' questions. I'm sure we've all been in tons and tons of situations where a student has said, but why? But why is it like that? And it's very difficult if you're standing there in front of the students and you're thinking, I have no idea why. Or, yeah, I can't tell you why. We have to be able to tell them why. That's why we are language teachers. We need to be able to give that answer. So developing our language awareness can help us to answer those tricky questions that students very often throw at us. Again, this is another important thing, and something that I found very difficult, again, when I first started teaching, because I didn't actually know. So being able to explain why things are incorrect. Well, we don't say it like this because, or we say, oh, this is an alternative way to say it, maybe. And again, you know, students, I think, want that information from us. They want to know why we can't say it like that. Sometimes there is no reason, but often we can give a reason. Another reason I think it's important for us to have good language awareness is so that we can select appropriate materials for our students. So if we look at, I don't know, if we look at a text, for example, and it's full of very complex grammar, and I'm teaching an elementary group, then I'm going to say, okay, no, that's too difficult for my students. Or alternatively, I might have a text that is very, very simple grammatically. So of course, I'm not going to give it to an advanced group of learners. So having that knowledge of language and being able to look at something and decide, yeah, this is actually very complex. I can't give it to a low level, for example, is of course important. When I keep referring back to when I first started teaching, but of course, you know, experience is important, right? When I first started teaching, I wasn't using a very good course book. So often we didn't use the course book. We had to kind of come up with our own ideas. So knowing kind of how language works helped me to decide, okay, well, if I'm going to teach that particular language point, then this would be a good context in which to teach it. So I don't know. I want to teach used to, for example. So a good context for that is maybe talking about childhood memories, things that I remember doing when I was a child. So knowing what the language means and how it works can help me then to decide, this is going to be a good context in which I can use to teach it to my students. Which goes on to the next point. Yeah, thinking of an appropriate context can then help me to present the language effectively. Okay, I might have fantastic language awareness. So I mean, yeah, having just language awareness doesn't necessarily mean that I can present language effectively. I need the techniques as well. But if I've only got the techniques and I don't have the awareness, then I can't present the language effectively. So I need both. I need the techniques and I need the awareness. And together, then I can present language effectively. And of course, yeah, this one, yeah, it helps us to teach with confidence. I know that once I got a better awareness of language, it improved my confidence as a teacher dramatically, you know, because I could go into a classroom and I was ready and I knew that I could answer students' questions. And I felt that I was doing my job then eventually. But it took some time. It really did take some time. And I think the last one is it can help us to improve our own language, you know, so learning about the way that a language works can help us, yeah, to know, oh, okay, well, I can say that, but I can't say that. So even as a native speaker, I think developing my own language awareness has made me much more aware of English as a language. So yeah, I think it's helped me to improve my own language. And of course, for people who don't speak English as a first language, then having that awareness again brings that confidence and can help you to become more effective in speaking English. So lots of different reasons why we need to have language awareness as teachers. And I just actually thought of one more. If we go on to do higher level certificates as teachers, you know, we go on to do something like the Delta, for example, then in order to be able to do that successfully, we need to have good language awareness, very good language awareness. Otherwise, yeah, we can't be successful. Okay, so I think we've thought about, yeah, what language awareness is, and we thought about why we need it. So we've answered our first two questions. So I have lots of answers now for the third question about how we can develop our language awareness. So let's look. Okay, one, I think, again, referring back to my experience when I first started teaching, I often looked at grammar books to try and understand language, but I found them quite difficult. I didn't really understand what they were explaining to me, and I didn't really understand the terminology. So I didn't actually find them very useful to begin with. So what was a better starting point for me then as an inexperienced teacher was looking at the language summaries in course books. So here we've got an example of a language summary from a popular adult course book. And of course, these language summaries are designed for students. So of course, they're quite straightforward. They don't have a lot of complex language in them generally. And they try to make it as clear and as simple as possible. So yeah, for me, looking at these language summaries was a really good place to start. And it's something that I always recommend to teachers, for example, on CELTA. You know, if you've got a language point to teach, go and look at the back of the course book first, use that as your starting point, at least get some kind of idea about it, and then maybe go and look at a different grammar book to get more depth to your understanding. So yeah, then this is the next port of call, is looking at a reliable grammar reference book. These are just some examples of grammar books that we can use. For me, this one, Practical English Usage, was my best friend. So not in the early days, I just found it too difficult. But once I got some awareness, then yeah, this became absolutely my best friend, and still is. It's one of the few books that I have here on my bookshelf, because it's such a useful book, and mostly it could answer my questions, and is, as the name suggests, it's practical, so it gives you good examples, and helps you to understand how the language works. If you've never seen this book before and you want to have a good grammar reference book, this is definitely the one that I recommend. It's probably one of the best ones out there. These other three are also very, very good, but the structure of these is a little bit different to practical English usage. How English works is more designed for students, so has simple explanations of grammar with practice exercises. Grammar for English language teachers, as the name suggests, of course, is for teachers, and is written in a very different style to practical English usage. It's got more wordy explanations maybe of language, and gives you ideas about rules of thumb, things that we say that are correct, but sometimes we break those rules. And this one's nice because it actually gives you some exercises to help you as the teacher think through the language. So I also recommend this book. It's a very useful one. And the Cambridge Grammar of English is quite similar to practical English usage. It kind of is like a dictionary of grammar. Okay, so definitely you need one, some, all of these books as reference guides. There are also other books that you could get about language. This one, aptly called About Language, again has lots of activities or exercises to help you think through language and how it's structured. This is possibly better to use if you've got a bit of experience under your belt. It's certainly, if you're a novice teacher, don't go anywhere near About Language, it'll just blow your mind. But if you've got some experience and some language awareness, then this About Language is a very good book. Discover English also is quite mind-blowing if you're a novice teacher. I remember looking at this when I was a novice teacher and thought, oh my God, what do I do with this? But at the same time, actually, it was quite helpful because it made me think, it really made me think through the language. Mai, you have a question, please ask. Mai? Okay, Mai, do you want to unmute? Can you unmute yourself?
No, I am sorry, I don't have. I click.
Well, we can hear you. I can hear
yes.
you.
Yes, I click by mistake.
Oh, okay. Okay, no problem. Amal, did you want to ask something?
Yes, please.
Please go ahead.
What about essential grammar in use and advanced grammar in use?
Also, yes, of course. Good books. Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, I have another person with their hand up. Yeah, please go ahead and ask your question, Mademoiselle.
Good evening for all.
Good evening.
My question is, it's a kind of language awareness. I'm asking about the using of the verb knowing. So when I teach my students the difference between present simple and continuous, so know the verb can take ing. So can I know, or can you answer this question, please?
I will answer it very quickly. But this is possibly something that, because we're thinking about doing a series of these sessions where we talk about language awareness. So that's definitely something I could put into another session. But it's basically because know, the verb know, is what we call a stative verb. So we can use it to talk about state, things that are facts and truth, but we can't use it to talk about things that are in progress. So that's the reason why we can't use know in continuous tenses, because it's what we call a stative verb or a non-dynamic verb. Okay. Does that answer your question? Okay, hopefully it does. Okay. Everybody's putting their hands up now. Okay, I'll answer a couple more questions, and then of course we'll move on. Heba, do you have a question? Go ahead.
Yes, hello, Amanda.
Good evening.
It's my pleasure to be with you today.
Mine to be with you too. Please go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, I just wonder if there are really limits for the English grammar, because I think that language is some kind, or changes a lot. So I think that sometimes slang language interferes our life, and sometimes we can hear, yes, special or different expressions every day. So
Well,
how can we
yeah.
learn these new things? Yes, and how can you know the limit? Because sometimes even when my students ask me, I really go back and search to make sure that everything is correct, and that this
Yeah.
new information is correct, or it's something that's new, or something that I didn't learn about at school or
Right.
at college.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, I mean, I've not lived now in England for more than 25 years, and I don't often go back. So of course, you know, the time that I've been away, definitely English has changed. You know, there's a lot of things that there's a lot of expressions that are used now that, you know, I never used to use when I was there. So of course, yeah, language develops all the time, and you can't know every single thing. I mean, you never could. But it's still, I think, important to do as much as you can to keep your awareness. And I think probably one of the most important things to do, and actually I haven't put it on the slides here, is to watch up-to-date, you know, movies and TV shows where you're hearing language being used, and that can maybe help you to kind of know about common everyday expressions that people are using.
Yes, that's really challenging for us.
I know.
Non-native speakers. Yeah, but there is another question that's really problematic for me and for almost teachers here, which is, what's the best way to teach grammar for students, or for whether they are old learners or young learners? Because sometimes, you know, that some I don't know, new methods say that we don't teach grammar, we just teach language in the context,
Yeah.
and we don't teach rules. So what's the best way to teach?
I think it's not easy for me to answer that question in a short way. But I think that's definitely something that we could another session about. So yeah, watch this space. We'll try and answer that question in another session, if that's okay. Okay, I've got a few more people wanting to ask questions. Amani.
Yeah, hi there.
Hi, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, my questions, there are 3 questions which are related to teaching process, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Okay. The first one is, I just want to ask you about your recommendation about the best or a good course book the teacher can deal with. There are so many course books around us, okay? So what is the best or the most effective one the teacher can deal with for all levels?
Again, maybe that's not something I can quickly answer, because of course it depends on what how old your students are, what kind of environment they're learning in. So I mean, again, that's maybe something we could do another session about. But are you teaching children or adults?
No, if you are adults, for sure.
You're teaching
If
adults.
you are, yeah, if you are teaching, yeah, adults from elementary, I mean from A to Z. The levels of English, yeah, is gradually improved.
I think, you know, it's best to go to the main publishers for a good course book. So when I say the main publishers, I'm talking about Cambridge University Press, Oxford University Press, and Macmillan. And you've got good course books in those.
Are these series such as Face to Face and Cutting Edge and so on?
Yeah,
it's the first time I have heard about these series which you are talking about.
Okay. Well, I think, yeah, as I say, it's maybe something we can definitely do another session about. We can look at some materials and different course books. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. Another one. I just wanna ask you about your opinion and the difference between the traditional way in teaching English and the most modern way, which we are all heard about and deal with in the such as test, teach, test, and present, produce, and text-based, and these techniques, these modern techniques in teaching English. I don't know why. I always feel that the traditional way is somehow effective for many.
No, it certainly can be. It certainly can be effective in some ways. But I think the idea behind the more modern methods and the methods that certainly we teach through the CELTA preparation course, for example, and on CELTA are things like, test, teach, test, PPP. And I think the idea, of course, behind those is that they're more communicative, they involve the students more. It's not just the teacher, you know, standing at the front of the class and explaining things. Okay, sometimes, of course, we need to explain, that's our job. But it's also important to involve students in the process. And I think that's why these modern methods are, I won't necessarily say better, because certainly the traditional methods do have their place. But if we want to, involve students more in the process, make it more meaningful, more memorable for them, then these modern methods are a little bit more quite a lot more effective in many ways.
Yeah, you mean that you see the modern ways are the most effective ways, or rather than more effective than the traditional way, the old way.
I mean, there's been research to show that the modern methods are effective because they do involve students in the process, and therefore it makes it more memorable for them. But of course, you know, for some students, they don't like that way. They prefer a more traditional method. So it's about then training students to, you know, to work in that way. But definitely, Amini, that's something we can have another session about, and we can look at some of those methods and we can compare them to the traditional ones. And yeah,
Okay.
I will make a note. We can do that in another session. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks a bunch.
You're very
Thanks, Amalia.
welcome. You're very welcome. Right, I've got 2 more people with their hands up to ask questions. I will quickly answer these questions and then I'm going to move on because I'm very conscious of time now. So I've got someone called iPhone. I'm sure that's not really your name, but anyway.
I think it's me, Abdelkader.
Okay, well, go on.
Hello,
go on,
how are you doing,
Abdelkader.
Amanda?
I'm good.
Hello,
I'm good.
how
Thank
you
you.
doing?
How are you?
I'm speaking from Kuwait. I'm great. Please, I have some comments because, you know, I have taken this course, CELTA, from Turkey. So I have this comment about learners' background, their past experience, and the problems that may arise, their past experience and the L1 interference, especially here in Kuwait. As for Kuwaiti students, we have some problems about pronunciation, grammar, producing language, and even Egyptian students may face some problems. You know, how can we overcome these problems in our country, Egypt, and here too in Kuwait?
Well, I mean, I think that's what we're kind of talking about in this session, right? It's knowing. I mean, it's not just about knowing how to teach things and having techniques, but it is knowing how language works so that we can understand why students have difficulties with certain things. I mean, I know, for example, when I first came here to Egypt, I found it quite difficult to teach my students because I had no concept of Arabic and, you know, didn't know kind of what they were likely to have problems with, having spent 20 years in Turkey, you know. So my experience in Turkey meant I could, you know, it was much easier for me to think, right, okay, they're going to have a problem with this because it's different how it is in Turkish. But I didn't have that knowledge when I came here to Egypt. So yeah, it was difficult for me.
Yeah, thank you.
But yeah, I think it's all about, yeah, knowing your students and knowing, and certainly knowing about their language. Yeah. Okay, guys, we're gonna move on. Thank you very much for those questions, and that's definitely given us some possible future sessions to have a think about. So watch this space. Okay, so talking of watching this space, we recently started a new series of videos on Tethalism, which deals with common mistakes that teachers often make in their own language when they're teaching students. So we've now done 3 videos, one on collocations, one on pronunciation about voiced and unvoiced consonants, and I've forgotten what the other one was. So together Mohammed and I are working on those, and we give you some background to each of the mistakes and you know, and why, of course, it's important for us to think about developing our understanding of those areas. So more videos of those, more common mistake videos coming in the near future. And of course, there are tons of videos on YouTube as well, tons, absolutely tons of videos. And of course, some are better than others. I mean, you can, you know, type in present perfect and boom, it will throw up a ton of videos that you can watch. And I'm sure, you know, you could get something useful from every single one of them. But if you want to have good quality videos, if you want to have, you know, a video that you know that you can rely on, I can recommend these 2. So the BBC Learning English website does lots of very useful and short videos, 6 minutes, explaining about different grammar points, and Oxford Online English also. is a very good series, gives lots of good examples and explains things very clearly. As I said, there are many out there, but these are the two that I would recommend. Okay, in addition to those, it's important to keep asking yourself questions about language. So here we have an example. Do I say I have a 2 years old daughter, or I have a 2-year-old daughter? Hopefully we know that we say the one on the right here, we say a 2-year-old daughter. But why? Why do we say a 2-year-old daughter? We're saying that her age is 2 years. So why suddenly now don't I use this S on year? So, I know which is correct, but why? Well, the reason why is because, I'm sure some of you already know, of course, is because now I've put this 2 year after the article before the noun, so it's become an adjective. It's not, years is no longer a noun, it's now become an adjective. So of course in English we don't make adjectives plural, so we have to remove that S. So that's why. So yeah, sometimes you might come across something and you think, yeah, why is it like that? Sometimes you might just need to think about it and you can find the answer. Sometimes, of course, you need to go to a grammar book or a reference book. Okay, what else can we do? This is a very important thing that we can do, is analysing the materials that we use with our students. So here is an exercise taken from New Headway Upper Intermediate, and it's focusing on a variety of tenses. So, okay, of course, my knowledge of language means that I know that this first one is past simple. Charles Dickens wrote Oliver Twist. And that this next one is I have written 2 best-selling crime stories. But yeah, why? Why is this one present perfect and why is this one past simple? Well, and that, of course, that's a question that our students might ask us. Well, the answer, I think, to this one is Charles Dickens can't write any more books because he's no longer alive. I can write more books because I still am alive, so I have the possibility to continue writing. So because of that, because it's still something that I can experience, I can use present perfect here. And the one after that, she has been writing her autobiography for the past 18 months. Here, I'm using present perfect continuous because it's an experience that started in the past and it's still continuing, but because of the start in the past and this fact that it's in progress, I can use present perfect continuous. So yeah, looking at the activities that we give to our students, knowing what the correct answers are is important, but it's more than just knowing what the correct answers are. You need to be able to explain why. So why is it past simple in the first one and why is it present perfect in the second one? This is something that can help us to develop our language awareness. This is something I did a lot of when I first started teaching. I just worked through coursebook activities and just asked myself every single time, why? Why is it like this? Why have I used that answer? Why is it that tense? Okay, I can see that people are writing lots of things in the chat. Thank you very much for answering my questions. I know I'm not giving you the opportunity to answer them out loud. I'm just telling you all the answers, but thank you very much for contributing. Okay, something else that we can do is keeping a notebook. When I first started teaching, this is something that I used to do. When I learn something about a tense or whatever, I would make a note of it in my notebook, and as I learned more, I would add more details to my notebook. So basically, I kind of made my own grammar book, but it was personalized to me. I put my own examples, I wrote my own explanations for things. I was able to make notes of things that, you know, my students had found difficult, so that I knew that possibly next time round, my students would have the same problems. I found this incredibly useful, really, really, really useful when I first started teaching. Of course, nowadays, probably people would keep it online rather than in a physical notebook. But however you choose to do it, I think it's a really valuable thing to do. Okay, another thing is we can learn another language. Knowing different languages can help us to understand the language that we're teaching. So I've already mentioned that I spent quite a lot of my teaching life in Turkey. So of course I learned Turkish, and knowing how Turkish worked helped me to understand some of the problems that my students had, but also it put me in it put me in their shoes. Me learning the language made me think, okay, I have difficulty with a particular thing. Now I understand why my students also have a similar problem. And it helps you to start thinking about patterns in language as well when you learn another language, comparing the language that you're learning to your own language, or comparing it to English, and seeing what the similarities and differences are. That also can really help you to develop your language awareness. A very valuable thing to do, of course, is collaborating with other teachers. Again, I wouldn't survive. I don't think I would have survived as an inexperienced teacher had I not had my colleagues around me to answer my questions. You know, so I'd run into the staff room and say, I don't know how to teach this. Can you tell me? Can you help me? And someone would sit down with me and explain it to me. So having people around you that can help you and explain things to you is, yeah, of course, incredibly valuable. So as well as collaborating with other teachers about how you can develop your own language, of course, one thing that you could do is do our course, which is called Language for Teachers. This is a course that I have developed, which looks at language awareness of the three areas of grammar, vocabulary, and pronunciation. So it focuses on tricky areas of those three main areas. So for example, in grammar, we look at present perfect because that's often a tricky tense to teach. In vocabulary, we look at phrasal verbs because, again, students often have difficulties with those. And in pronunciation, for example, we talk about the sound, and there's the p problem as well that we look at. So we run this course 4 times a year. We have a course due to start on the 6th of March, Sunday. And yeah, I hope that you will come and join us for this course. Let me give you a little bit more information about it. It's a 28-hour course. So that's 21 hours live sessions on Zoom, and then 7 hours offline work, so 1 hour a week offline. So that's little things like doing a little bit of homework before the session or doing something after the session. It's very short. There's nothing too difficult or complicated. And there are a couple of assignments. One written assignment where you have to write about something that you've learned about language, and then an assignment where you talk about something that you've learned about language. And I give you personalized feedback on both of those assignments. So they're not very long, they're not very difficult. They're just something to so that we can give you some feedback on your language. If you want to know more about the course, this is kind of part of what the syllabus looks like. And if you go to this link here that I'm showing on the screen, you can see an overview of what this course entails. And I'll give you information about the different elements of the course. So please go and have a look at the overview if you're interested in doing this course with me. If you go and register in the next 24 hours, then you will get a huge discount on this course. So once we finish the session, this discount is available only for 24 hours. Please go and look at the overview on our Pitfalls website. So you can look here, the web link is down here. Go and see if this is something that you think you're interested in. If you are, put your application in, and if we get it in the next 24 hours, then you will get a discount on this course. I really hope that some of you will come and join us. It'd be great if all of you would come and join us, but I can't do a course with 100 people. Over the next few months, we will run more courses. So please think about it. If you're interested, then say go and look at the link and register. Okay, that's kind of it for the session. I hope you have found it useful. I hope it's made you think about some things about why language awareness is important. Time is up, but I will answer a couple more questions if people have them. But just so that you can get your certificate for attending this course, here is a QR code. If you can read it on your phone. If not, if you can't read the QR code, then take a note of this link here. It will take you to the certificate. All you need to do is write your name on the certificate and download it, and then please save it somewhere and upload it to your social media, upload it to your Facebook account, upload it to Instagram, upload it to, I don't know, wherever else there is, and say that you did this session with us on Pitfalls. You can talk about, you can mention Pitfalls and Mohammed and myself, and please, share the love and show people that you are taking your professional development seriously. So thank you very much. I will answer just a couple of questions if we have any left. Ayat, did you have a question?
Yes, please.
Go ahead, Ayat.
First of all, thank you for this amazing session.
You're very welcome.
My question is, I really need your recommendation about classroom management, if you have books or courses, because I've taken my CELTA course in International House, London, but it had nothing to do with classroom management.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's a very, very tiny element of the CELTA course, just because there's so many other things to do. I think, the books that were recommended on the CELTA, like Learning Teaching and the Practice of English Language Teaching, they give some ideas about classroom management. Are you teaching children or adults, Ayat?
Yeah, children. I'm an English teacher in international school. Yeah.
Right.
That's why.
Okay.
That's why. Yeah, it's very urgent.
Well, again, maybe I can recommend another Pitfalls course. I mean, we have courses. I think Laura's doing one actually about classroom management. That might just be the answer to all your questions. She recently did a video about problems in the classroom, I think. I need to check. I can't quite remember the details now. Off the top of my head, I can't give you a good example of a book other than the two that I mentioned, but of course they're mainly for adults. Maybe something like Children Learning English. Can't remember the author now. That will give you some ideas about classroom management, I think.
Is there any Cambridge certificate?
Unfortunately, there aren't any Cambridge certificate courses, although International House do have a young learner course. And of course, that would focus on classroom management to some degree. If you get in touch with us, then we can try and give you some help about that, Ayat.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. Okay, I can answer one or two more questions. I've got Yassine. Do you want to ask your question?
Yes, hello.
Hi.
Good evening, Amanda. How are you?
I'm good,
Well,
thank you.
I have got a questions about language awareness. So as a teacher, I was interested in your thoughts about the language awareness. How important is language awareness for English language learners? You know, because especially nowadays, we as English teachers try to promote our students' speaking skills. So my question is like, is it important to know like how to form present simple or past simple? Because, you know, especially in the communicative language teaching approach, the focus is more on, you know, using language rather than knowing about language. This is one question. Sorry, the second part. The second part of my question.
It's a very good question, Yassine.
Thank you so much. Also, I mean, about the language awareness, is it equally important for native and non-native like teachers?
That question I can answer easily, yes. I think native and non-native teachers need to have an awareness of language. I mean, as a non-native teacher, you learn the language, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you still have the awareness of it that you need as a teacher. So I think, yes, regardless of where you're from, you need to have language awareness. Yeah, your other question's much more difficult to answer, and again, could be another session. I mean, I think it's important that students do have some concept of language and know, you know, how to put it together and everything. Maybe they don't always necessarily need to know all the terminology to, you know, to describe it or whatever. It's important, of course, that they know how to use it in the right kind of situation. But I think, yeah, that's not a question I can answer in like 30 seconds, Yassine. So maybe let's do a session about that, okay?
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. I shall make a note. Okay, I'm going to take one final question, and it's going to be from Suhair. I don't know if I'm saying your name correctly.
Yes, it's me. It's Suhair. Hi, Amanda.
Hi.
Thank you so
Please
much
ask your
for this
question.
amazing session. Yes. So how can I lower my TTT? Yeah.
Well, again, I suppose it's down to teaching techniques, you know. As we were mentioning earlier about the more modern techniques, using those rather than the more traditional ones. That's one way to reduce your TTT. Involve your students in the lessons, you know, use lots of pair work, use lots of group work. Get them doing things, get them doing research and coming back to the class, for example, and telling each other about what they found out. Those are some ways that you could help, that you could reduce your TTT.
All right, thank you so much.
You're welcome, Suhair. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I can see that everybody's going crazy taking the QR code to get your certificates. That's fantastic. we are going to wrap up the session now. And so thank you very much for being here. I hope you found it useful, and thank you for your questions. That's definitely given me food for thought for future sessions. So yeah, watch this space. There'll be more in the future. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Enjoy what's left of your Friday evening. And enjoy the rest of the weekend. And hopefully I will see some of you maybe on the Language for Teachers course. If not, I hope to see you in another session in the future. Thank you very much, guys. Take care. Have a lovely, lovely evening. Bye-bye, everybody. Take care.